good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, or wherever you're at as you're watching this. I wanted to share a few thoughts about parents and their college students. And I have this chance to give this presentation at a CSU where I worked before, Long Beach State, and now I'm at San Diego State, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I've also done this similar presentation at Oakwood University where I worked for 3.5 years. I always like to share with parents, parent to parent, and give you some joy and a little bit of pain. As the song from Frankie Beverly and Mays says, it's like sunshine and rain. It's worth it for those two things to go together. So let's get into it. And I hope this is helpful for you and anyone else who is dropping off their child for their first time away at school. I'm excited to be a part of that and make sure that we're supporting you as you help your child matriculate through the university. So I'm Brandon Gamble and I'm your facilitator. I'm open to answering questions through the chat or any other way that we can. There's also my email out down there. That's B as in boy, Gamble as in Vegas at SDSU.edu. That's bgamble at SDSU.edu. And I'm the faculty scholar for the Black Resource Center. Just a note about my hat, I'm just keeping it from the glare because I am follically challenged. All right. So a quick story about the denied mother. Dorothy Norwood, and I've heard Shirley Caesar sing similar song about a mother who sent her child off to college, and the child, when she sees her mother, has a reaction, and that reaction is, look, I'm not going to act like I know you because you work hard, you're a domestic or you're a maid, and you're ugly, mom, and I'm trying to be beautiful and trying to be young and trying to live my life, and I'm not really connected with you in this way. And her mother has to remind her that the reason why she is this way is because she reached into a fire and pulled her baby out of this fire, out of a place where they were living that was ramshackled and just horrible due to the conditions under which they lived, most likely in the segregated South, but this is a legend. So the awful things that happened to the mother grow as the retelling of the story. But the point of the story is, don't forget where you come from. And I think we want that for all of our students as they go away to college, to remember where they came from. So when it's time to come home or when they have completed their studies, they're of use to the community. Now, parents often, and particularly in today's conversation about helicopter parents or parents who are very involved, whether a tiger, lion, or bear, mama bears or papa bears, right? That first day of school, your child doesn't want to leave and you almost don't want to leave them, but you're ready to get them on that bus. I know some folks who are having parties afterwards getting these kids off to school, particularly in K through 12, but that first day of college, it's difficult because we realize this is it. And your child is like, Mom, let me go. I'm on my way. Right, and that long goodbye, and I got a few memes here and other funnies just to, again, keep us laughing, to keep from crying, how grandma be looking when everybody leaves, and sometimes they've driven off, whether they're going in an Uber or a taxi or another family member is taking them to the airport. They are on their way, and it's all right to say goodbye. Some black parents will not miss the homework. I'm just saying, I'm one of those. That new math, I couldn't help you growing up, and I definitely can't help you when you're in college. I have a daughter who's a biology major, and she has since surpassed me. So let me get into what we'll cover here. What college students experience in their transition, characteristics of successful college students, and what you can do to help your student. Also, parent transitions, right, for you, and my thoughts on avoiding the denied parent syndrome, as we just talked about earlier. I don't know where the money goes, but at least for me, I get excited too because my kids are doing well and I'm more than happy to give them that money. And this meme here says, you ask your mom for money and she says, bring me my bag. And as we see an excited Rihanna here in this picture. So the excitement, initial excitement, definitely at starting college and feeling more like an adult. There's a tendency to test new limits and boundaries, right? And you see this starting usually that senior year, but definitely now they're in it and they're excited. there's a lot of stress and anxiety around these new academic demands, especially after that first or second week. They start feeling it, and they're questioning whether or not they might succeed in college. They may even have some roommate issues. But they're also feeling the weight of the responsibility of living on their own, and as well as financial concerns, right? And sometimes it's financial concerns about work, housing, food, or even the loans that they may have taken out, or you two together have taken out. Man, and I know for me, sometimes I felt like I relied on my children, definitely not felt like I did, for my smartphone. And then this meme here, the face mothers make when they are about to ask you to teach them how to do something on their phone, or parents be like, you call this clean. Well, I'm just saying my kids are no longer there to clean. I got to do all the cleaning up now. And there's no one to blame, no one to look for. It's just us. So we're going to have to grow up a little bit too. I'm just saying. All right. So this guilt, some students may feel that one or more parents are dependent on them, and that going to college is an act of betrayal or abandonment. It doesn't make rational sense, but it makes psychological sense in that, there is this connection, and now you're separating and this child is moving forward. So some of that can be tied to loneliness, but not always. But definitely there's some homesickness, some psychological loneliness, and new surroundings, and waking up in a bed that's not yours. And they may feel like they don't have anyone to talk about their fears. And you don't want to burden, and the students feel that they can't burden their parents with their concerns because they know everything that their parents have sacrificed. And then they don't know where to go for advice, especially if they're the first in their family to go to college. So parents, faculty, and staff and students, we all need to work together. So there's a meme here with that look your mama gave you at the parent-teacher conference growing up black, finding out that there's something going on that the parent and the teacher are now agreeing upon, and they're going to work together to help that child. Now, that happened in K through 12, but it can still happen at the college level. So here, getting into successful college students, they got to have time management. They got to motivate themselves. We'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. They got to know a variety of study skills and strategies, and be aware of university policies and procedures, and they got to be able to seek help. So let's break things down, right? Time management and study strategies. Time management is the best indicator of college success. I'll say that again. Time management is a better indicator of college success than GPA or SAT scores. So there's a general rule for 2 or 3 hours of study for every unit, right? So colleges are full-time jobs. If you're taking 12 units, that's approximately 10 hours in class, and that's 24 to 36 hours of study. So we recommend working no more than 10 to 12 hours a week. And for some people, that's a revelation, but you also need to balance that time, because some people might think, I'm not ready for college. No, you're ready for college, but you may not be ready to keep a full-time job and do college. Next, motivation. Need to know how to motivate themselves even when they aren't interested. And they need to set goals in order to stay motivated, right? Even if they're small goals. I woke up and I studied for 15 minutes this morning, and then I'll study for 15 minutes this afternoon and study for 15 minutes at night. If they haven't been moving before, that's a start. But motivation is important. Study skills, right? Students are sometimes shocked to find that study strategies, definitely they had in high school, they're not working anymore. And so they need more complex and varied study strategies. And they need to talk with other students who are in similar majors and have gone through some of the same classes, but they need to work through that. Need to have a strong sense of purpose underlying all this studying. And I'll break down some more about the purpose, but I think that's extremely important as well. Right. So another piece is asking for help, right? But part of that help is having a knowledge of what's out there about university policies and procedures, right? And there's strict policies and procedures around things like financial aid, academic advisement, and course requirements. Our Black Resource Center, our Educational Opportunity Program, Student Affairs, and many other programs will help students with policies. But students have to be familiar with the university catalog and their own schedule of classes, right? Can't rely on someone else to do it for you. You need to be aware and need to be able to be actively engaged. You can seek counsel, but it's important that you're clear on what the next steps are. So as faculty and staff, we want to help students, but we don't often know that students need help unless they say something. So at times students are embarrassed or ashamed to seek advice, right? Tutoring or even counseling. So study shows that the most successful college students are the ones that seek out the most help, right? Great thing about black students, they're most likely, and this is a recent study going back to 2016 and even more recently in 2019, successful college students help each other go to tutoring, go to counseling. So students need to know when, where, and what kind of help they need to know it is okay to admit it, right? So how you as a parent can support your student. And I'm preaching to the choir here. Again, I have 2 students in college. Be available to talk, listen, and give encouragement, right? Encourage them to get involved with various activities, but not necessarily that first semester, but definitely as they move forward. Ask questions, but not too many, right? Don't overload them because they are busy. Show interest in their classes, their new friends, or their activities, and avoid pressuring them when they're reluctant to talk. But I would say do insist that you do connect at minimum 1 time a week and no more than about 3 times a week. At least have 1 extracurricular activity, leads to a better connection with the school, and it helps combat loneliness. I wouldn't do more than 3 extracurricular activities, but 1 is sufficient to start with. But it definitely helps students to be more likely to graduate. So don't ask them if they're homesick, right? They are, so no need to ask. But ask them how they're coping with their new environment, right? So you can write or email, even if they don't write back, but you can get your thoughts out and make that connection. Again, call but not too often, be a good listener, and hear the whole story before you comment, because sometimes it's a new perspective for them and they need to talk it through. Don't worry too much. Right. Expect change, but not too much, right? They're definitely not going to change that much in 6 months, but they will change overall. So be understanding of the changes in stress your students may experience, good and bad stress. So trust them, keep an open mind to their new ideas, experiences, and opinion, and definitely be a home base. College can be stressful and overwhelming. Your support and understanding at those times can make the difference. Now, parents, consider your transition. This means you. You may experience the empty nest syndrome, especially if all your kids are gone, but if that first one goes, it starts, right? You're starting to feel like, oh man, I got a little bit more time. So spend quality time with your partner and your friends, right? Join a club or activity you've put off in the past. Learn something new. Take a class or start a new hobby. Man, get out there, get involved. And this last piece here, this is kind of my thoughts on dealing with the denied parent syndrome. Parents know fake friends. Remember Claire Huxtable here, and your mom will notice your fake friends before you do. So get to know your child's friends at school. So some of my thoughts here on avoiding the denied parent friend: get to know as much about their friends as you can, because they may tell you this real story. And usually those stories involve one of these F's, and there may be another one you could add to it, but some question about whether or not this person is actually my friend. A fight. Finances in the first year. I mentioned that before, but also failure where they may have never had it before, they're having it now. Watch out for those kinds of things. And every time I'd have a student who'd come home that I was mentoring on my own kids, and I talked to them about this, like, how did you know? And my whole issue was, how are you dealing with it, and how are you going to be able to go back and address it? Because sometimes they think like, this is it, and no one has ever gone through this, and I'm able to tell them either my story or tell them that, yes, many students go through these things. Here's how you overcome them. Encourage your efforts to make long-term decisions, right? That's what college is about, making a decision to go to a place and then also utilize those skills for a good portion of your life and not the rest of your life, right? When it comes to relationship, learning family history is good for their identity development and their dating relationships and how they see their coupling. This is the age where they do it, or at least make strong attempts to, and they got questions. So it's good for them to at least understand where they come from, so when they connect with someone, they're able to be clear about that. Encourage them to develop their story for their first Thanksgiving, no matter how far out there it may seem. And their story, their narrative about who they are and what they're doing in college and what they'd like to do in the future. That first narrative helps make that connection, so they're not denying where they came from, and they have a purpose, right? And I mentioned I would talk about that again, but that purpose is extremely important. Help them establish goals for the next 10 years, not just for the end of college, but for well after college, and the type of work environment they want to be in, and the type of place they want to live, and how they want to connect with their own family. All right. I hope that information is helpful. I'm open to take questions for the next few minutes, but these are my thoughts about the denied parent syndrome, and then also sending your kids off to college. This is an exciting time, so I hope that you enjoy it. Exactly 22 minutes.